today on the Tearsheet podcast.
Yeah, so we just launched our on-demand delivery platform, which is really neat. So what on-demand delivery allows you to do? So today on Square Online Store, or before we launched, you would have been able to order for pickup, for curbside pickup, or for delivery where the seller themselves, actually their employees or their drivers or couriers are actually doing the delivery. Now with on-demand delivery, any seller can actually sign up to the platform and offer delivery where that delivery is actually fulfilled by a third-party service like Postmates.
Welcome to the Tearsheet podcast. I'm Suman Bhattacharyya. Today we have with us David Rusenko, who's the head of e-commerce at Square. David was the founder of website builder Weebly in 2006, which was acquired by Square for $365 million 2 years ago. The Square online store relaunched last year. With the growth of Shopify, Amazon, Walmart, and more recently Facebook in the e-commerce arena, it's becoming a competitive field. E-commerce platforms are getting into financial services, and the reverse is happening as well. Since Square acquired Weebly, it's expanded its e-commerce platform, and it's launched a number of new products to help sellers transition their businesses online. Based on Square's experiences onboarding sellers, Square has some insights from sellers on the front lines and some predictions about the role e-commerce will play in a post-COVID-19 reality. David, nice to have you on our podcast.
Thanks for having me back.
Great. So tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got connected with Weebly and Square, and how you got into e-commerce.
Yeah, so I started Weebly, wrote the first line of code in 2006. We really started full-time in 2007. Initially, that was just making it easy for people to make a website. Then it was really making it easy for businesses to sell online and create an online store. As you mentioned, about 2 years ago, we joined forces with Square. Square acquired Weebly, and the team moved over. Now the e-commerce team at Square. And, again, focus very much on a lot of the same mission. Weebly and Square were focused on very similar things, really empowering entrepreneurs, equipping them with the tools to be successful, started in different areas. Weebly started more online, Square started in person, and the combination really brings together a powerful platform that allows people to sell across channels and expand their business online.
So tell us how Square's e-commerce team functions in the context of the broader Square organization. Are its operations pretty tightly integrated post-Weebly acquisition?
We are actually. It's one of those things that with an acquisition, a lot of times you can go too far and overcorrect in either direction. I think sometimes people will just leave the company alone and not integrate them, and then you end up with a team on an island, or you could sort of give them the hug of death and bring them too close too soon. So I think it's actually worked really well. The vast majority of the Weebly team is still working as part of the e-commerce team, and obviously we have a whole bunch of new people that have joined the team. And so I think actually in that regard, it's been a huge success story.
And you're all co-located in the same office?
We are all in the same office, although these days that doesn't really mean much, but we'll see how that continues to evolve.
Right, great. So tell us a little bit about the Square online store. And then I understand it was relaunched last year, so you may want to also get into how you've built it out since then.
Sure. So the Square Online Store is effectively using a lot of the Weebly technology and integrating it into Square's platform. It's a very robust platform with a huge, deep feature set that allows businesses to start selling online. I think there's a couple things that really make it unique. One of those is that, again, going back to it's probably the only robust e-commerce platform that is available for free. So you can actually start using it for free without any monthly fees. The vast majority of the functionality is available in the free plan, and that's pretty unique. The other thing that makes it really unique is that it caters to more than just one vertical. So a lot of e-commerce platforms will cater to just retail or just food and drink or just services. And Square Online Store actually does all of those things really well. It works across verticals, and these days increasingly, we'll get into this later, but these days increasingly businesses aren't just doing one particular thing; they're having to do it all. And so this is something that works really well across verticals. The last point is just that it's integrated in the Square's ecosystem. So you think of Square, obviously you think of the amazing, beautiful hardware. You think of the whole ecosystem. Things like payroll, things like appointments, things like marketing. really a whole suite of tools to run your business digitally. And so Square's online store actually fits really well in the Square's ecosystem. You can leverage all that functionality.
So, as we know, COVID-19 has changed the way that people shop for goods, and I imagine it's had effect on the ways sellers do their business. What are some insights from sellers that you've heard?
Yeah, I mean, COVID-19, I think, has just changed everything overnight in really crazy ways. In March, when it sort of became apparent that this thing was really picking up steam, we completely reprioritized our roadmap to launch functionality immediately that sellers needed right now. And so, uh, 2 days after San Francisco put in place its shelter-in-place order, we launched curbside pickup. Within a week, we had launched delivery, and kind of one of the interesting things that happened through the pandemic taking hold is that a lot of sellers, a lot of smaller businesses knew that they wanted to get online. They knew that they had to digitize their operations, but they were going, they're planning to do it over time. The pandemic effectively shortened a 3-year adoption cycle down to 3 weeks, where all of a sudden moving online wasn't just optional or a nice to have or something you do to grow your business or gain efficiency. It was something that you had to do to survive. We saw a lot of sellers just, really inspired by, how nimble and resourceful and quick moving they were. We could talk about some examples, just in the restaurant space or the food and beverage space. But you have some industries that hadn't seen major changes in the way they do business in decades that just reinvented themselves overnight. You think about restaurants all of a sudden selling groceries or or retail merchandise, or even looking at services, or even nonprofit. And a lot of them allowed people to buy meals to be donated to first responders. And so I think we just took our cues from our sellers in terms of how quickly they were moving, and how resourceful they were being, and really wanted to adapt the platform to really meet their needs.
So when you think about Square, you think about at least I think about the point of sale technology. And, I would imagine one of the benefits of the Square online store is that it connects to that. I understand that you had a recent announcement regarding on-demand delivery, and perhaps that's an example of how you can demonstrate how Square online store connects to the broader ecosystem of Square's payment products.
Yeah, so we just launched our on-demand delivery platform, which is really neat. So what on-demand delivery allows you to do? So today on Square Online Store, or before we launched, you would have been able to order for pickup, for curbside pickup, or for delivery, where the seller themselves, actually their employees or their drivers or couriers are actually doing the delivery. Now, with on-demand delivery, any seller can actually sign up to the platform and offer delivery, where that delivery is actually fulfilled by a third-party service like Postmates. And what this really allows sellers to do is that they can now offer really compelling, competitive delivery, options, and they can do it without having to pay the service fee that would typically be associated with ordering from apps. So I know it's there have been a lot of articles written recently just about how difficult it is for restaurants, but very similar thing on retailers. Retailers also need the ability to be able to offer ordering for delivery, and so the Square on-demand delivery service will make that available to whether you're a restaurant or a retailer. It'll make it available to you so that effectively you can continue to do business as normal. To you, it sort of looks like a pickup order, but the actual delivery is being fulfilled by a third party service.
Square recently reported about how sellers are increasingly using e-commerce to weather the economic storm brought about by COVID and shelter in place. What do you think are going to be the longer implications of COVID-19 on the evolution of your online store platform, and maybe more generally, in the context of the shift towards e-commerce?
Great. Yeah, I think there are a couple implications here. The first one is, I think we're gonna see, for a while, and probably for a long while, we're just gonna see varied consumer preference around exactly how they would like to fulfill or pick up their order. And so as things open up or shut back down, you're going to see some consumers that are happy to come and purchase in store. You're going to see some consumers that'll prefer to do curbside pickup, or some that prefer to do delivery. And so I think the sellers expanding into being able to sell across these channels, across different fulfillment methods. Longer term, you're going to see consumers' expectations shift, and I think that's going to be a durable change. Another one is just around sellers moving online. So, a lot of sellers that again maybe had planned to move online, in a year or in a couple years, all of a sudden did so, over a very quick time frame. And when you think about the actual implications of that, selling online, you might just think about how do I take that order online? Taking the order is actually the easiest part. The part that's really tricky and really complicated is that in order to take that order, you actually have to digitize the operations of your entire business. And so, for a restaurant, for example, that might mean, having a centralized place where you can see all of your orders coming in from different channels or from different sources. That might mean being able to have some type of order throttling so that you don't overwhelm the kitchen at 7 p.m., but then no orders are coming in at 8 p.m. And and it might mean when an order comes in for pickup in 2 hours, and the prep time is 20 minutes, that order needs a print in the kitchen or display on the kitchen KDS exactly 20 minutes before that's meant to be picked up. And for retail, as one example, you would have to make sure that you're digitizing your inventory and syncing your inventory so that you're not overselling. If you have, as an example, if you have only one dress remaining, and someone comes and buys it in store, and then simultaneously someone else is trying to buy it online, that obviously doesn't work. And so, so I think that the actual effort to digitize your business's operations is significant. It's not easy, but there's payoff at the end of the tunnel, because when businesses come out of this, all of a sudden they've gone through that effort, they digitize their operations, and what they see is that not only do they gain efficiencies, but now they could sell across more than one channel. They can sell across Instagram. They can sell, wherever their customers are, they're able to take orders and run a lot more efficiently. What we see is that a lot of businesses will come out of it once in person and online kind of rebounds. A lot of businesses will actually come out of it stronger. For a lot of businesses we talked to, once in person started to rebound, they actually said our sales are actually up compared to where they were before the pandemic, because we're now able to cater to customers across multiple channels. So I think it is obviously a very difficult time. If there is a silver lining here, it's that this sort of rapid transformation that a lot of businesses are going through should, in the long run, make them more efficient and stronger and more competitive with a lot of larger businesses that have already have all these systems in place.
So it's really the digitization of the front and back end to allow for what analysts have called in the past that sort of omni-channel reality, where people can start a purchase in one channel and finish it in another.
That's exactly right. And I think the key piece here is that it's not just taking an order; it's running your entire business. So you do want to get set up on a platform that has more than just this one piece. If you get set up on a half dozen different platforms and they all have to integrate, it becomes a total mess. But if you choose one platform that allows you to really run your business on top of it, then it just runs completely seamlessly.
Your recent report also had some interesting insights geographically too. I believe Albuquerque was high on the lists of merchants who had gone online.
Yeah, that was interesting. So we released a e-commerce report that showed a lot of the cities that were moving online the fastest and adopting Square Online Store the fastest. And what was interesting is it was not necessarily the names that you would expect to see at the top. Albuquerque was number one. You might have expected to see San Francisco. San Francisco was number 7. Above San Francisco, you had Philadelphia. But a lot of smaller cities, a lot of smaller towns. And so, I think the phenomenon here of moving online, it's sort of intuitive, but the phenomenon is it wasn't just a sort of, techie type of city. It wasn't just a coastal phenomenon. It was really coast to coast and everywhere in between. We saw a lot of businesses just, moving online and adapting their operations very quickly.
Looking at some of the stats, the Square Online Store, the gross payment volume, according to your last earnings, grew up 5 times since mid-March, which is the strongest adoption by sellers in 2 of the hardest hit verticals, food, drink, and retail. So a couple of things I gleaned from that. Are you mainly now focusing on new client acquisition as opposed to moving online those Square merchants who were primarily brick and mortar? And are there any changes in behavior when it comes to payments from consumer and merchant perspectives?
Yeah. So one thing that we announced at the last earnings as well is that the daily new signups for Square Online Store were actually outpacing what we would traditionally see for our point of sale. And I think it's a really a powerful example of just how the platform has really started to come into its own. And it's not just existing Square sellers that are adopting it, and plenty have, but people are recognizing that this is actually a really great solution for those who may not already be on the Square ecosystem, are actually coming to Square and adopting the platform and products to be able to sell online. To your second point, obviously the big trend that we're seeing as far as payments behavior is just a trend towards contactless. And so, I know personally, I've went to a CVS and was asked, "Hey, is it okay if I sign for you?" And obviously that's okay, because I'd rather not touch a shared surface. And we're seeing the same thing just with all payments, is people are generally, it just doesn't feel right to be touching that shared surface. It doesn't feel right to it feels a lot safer to be able to use some form of contactless. So whether that's Apple Pay or whether that's using a QR code, we're starting to see a lot of that behavior emerge.
So you agree that COVID-19 will just accelerate that trend towards cashless, contactless payments?
It's tough to say exactly where it settles in the long term. I do think there's a place for cash, um, but for the time being, I think people are fairly reticent to be sharing surfaces, especially with the COVID-19 sort of where it is. So, I think for the time being, that's definitely one trend that we've seen, is that people prefer to be able to use payment methods where they don't have to contact the same surface.
Now, since you launched the Square Online store, the space has gotten pretty competitive. As I mentioned earlier, you have Facebook move into e-commerce, you have the integration of Walmart with Shopify. What keeps you up night as the space gets increasingly competitive?
Well, the competition doesn't keep me up at night, and I'll sort of answer these in two parts. So I think as far as competition goes, I would really make a distinction between channels and marketplaces, and where buyers are, and platforms that enable sellers to run their business. And so when I think of a platform like Facebook, I'm not privy to their long-term plans, obviously, but they're Facebook or selling on Instagram. I think any channel where sellers can capture new buyers and get introduced to new buyers is a net good thing for sellers, because sellers just need all the visibility they can get. And any channel, it just sort of adds, there's plenty of channels for discoverability, and I believe that there will be more that are introduced. um, but again, taking that order is one thing, but then being able to power a seller's business is another. And so I think this is something that Square was very forward looking in talking about omni-channel, really before it was popular, and before it really became necessary. But that is the version of the world that we're evolving into, or that we've evolved into, is that an order is not coming in just via one channel, it's coming in across disparate channels. And so you do need a platform to bring all of those channels together, to be able to put your products or your services out there, to be able to track your sales across all the channels, to be able to do things like track your inventory, or do order staggering for food. And then you're going to need a platform to then go and run your business, whether it's reporting, whether it's paying your employees through payroll, whether it's going out and marketing to your customers. I don't think that platform to run a small business is something that a company like Facebook is looking to build in the long run. And so, I actually welcome Facebook getting more into it, because I think it's going to be great for small businesses who are going to be able to just get in front of more consumers. In terms of the second half of your question, in terms of what keeps me up at night, it's just not moving fast enough. I always want us to move faster. There's a laundry list of things that we need to build. And the entire team is very acutely aware of all the things that we could be launching, and just how badly sellers need the help right now in terms of their platform improving to meet their needs. When the world seems to be reinventing itself, every month or two, we need to do the same, and we need to be there for our sellers when they need us the most. And so that's really what keeps me up at night, is making sure that we're able to build and ship the things, and have the quality and the feature set that our sellers need to be able to cope with this.
So thinking about all those things you just mentioned, how you think about how you're going to be able to meet sellers' needs. What does the next phase of growth look like for you? Will it be building out the product set? Will it be building out a robust set of data that sellers will be able to look into to understand the market? What does the next phase of growth look like for you?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, without going into any kind of, specifics, we prefer to underpromise and overdeliver on that front. We're obviously going to be continuing to adapt the platform. So, you see things like when the pandemic first hit, we launched curbside delivery. Now we're launching, on-demand delivery. We're going to continue the drumbeat. We have a lot lined up, a lot that we're working on right now to continue the drumbeat of being able to provide that functionality to meet those needs, so that as the world continues to evolve, and you think of reopening for in-store, you think of potentially, I'm not sure any of us know exactly where it's going, but you think of potentially shutting down again. There's lots of needs that are constantly evolving, and so we'll be constantly evolving and building the functionality that sellers need.
Thank you for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.